Today we're going to show you how to install this S&B Filters cold air intake into your 2021 to 2023 Ford Super Duty with that 6.7 turbo diesel engine. Now, cold air intake is one of those many first under the hood mods that people make. And they do that because a properly designed cold air intake can increase airflow to the engine. And that'll help out down the road if you plan to make any engine mods that need extra airflow. So whether that be bigger injectors, bigger turbos, engine tubes, anything like that, well, you've got that extra airflow right from the start. And you can even notice some small performance gains just with the cold air intake. Now, S&B Filters tests all the kits they make. And this particular kit, S&B claims up to a 39% increase in airflow. And in their testing, they've even noted a 0.2 to 0.3 increase in filter efficiency over the OE filter setup. Now that 0.2, 0.3% may not sound like a lot, but we're adding 39% more airflow to the engine and not losing any filter efficiency. Well, that's big. Now, of course, this is an S&B intake, and we've shown you these before, so they look great under the hood. They're also easy to install, and we're gonna show you that right now. Now, the tools we use for this install are a pair of needle nose pliers, some flush cuts, a 13mm ratcheting wrench, both a small and a medium Phillips, then a medium-sized flat blade, a panel tool, a T20 Torx bit, an 8mm socket, a 5/16 socket, ratchets and extensions in 1/4 and 3/8 inch drive. In 3/8 inch drive, we had a 10mm socket and a 13mm socket. We're gonna start out by disconnecting the negative terminal on both batteries. And this one needs a little cleanup. So now you can take a screwdriver and slip it in and just spread it a little bit. And then you can use that just to twist as you're lifting up. And there's one. So let's throw a rag over this. Here we have our MAF sensor. Now on the back side of this plug, we've got a little red tab, and you can use your fingernail or a little screwdriver to pop in there and just pop it up. And then you can push down. Grab a panel tool, slide it right underneath this connector here, and twist up. Yeah, sure. Now, if you have a problem with the panel tool getting that out of there, sometimes it's easiest to grab some needle nose, and we can just slide it in and give her a little twist and a wiggle. There we go. Now we want to loosen our hose clamps on our air intake tube, and that's going to be a 7mm socket. Now we can take our coolant lines right here, pop them up out of this holder, and then slide our intake tube off the engine first. Now on our air box, we have these clips right here. We're gonna pop this one off, pop the next one off. We've got this guy right here. And then we can open it up, slide it out, and the filter lid and intake tube comes right out. And then we're gonna slide our filter out, tip it back, and then it'll come up and out, and ooh, that one's a dirty one. Then right here in front, we've got this little rivet that's holding the front of the air intake. Pop the middle section up, and then the outer section comes up. And we can pop our air bezel out. So now we've got a screw right down here we need to pull out. And if we take a look, well, this particular one is missing the screw. So somebody's had this air box out before and they didn't remove that screw. All right, so if you do have a screw down there, you need to remove it. We're just gonna find a replacement for it. So with that screw removed, you can grab your air box and just give it a good wiggle and a tug. So now that we got it loose, the trick to getting it out is we want to rotate it backwards, and then we can slide it straight up and out. And look at all the goodies in there. Now the one thing you want to check is if you look down here, we've got this grommet right here. Sometimes when you pull them up, they'll stay up here on the air box. So if you found that, you'll want to pop that grommet back off your air box and stick it down in this bracket. So next up is to remove this bracket here. And to do that, we got to remove those two bolts. Now you do want to save those two bolts, so set those aside. Now this is the S&B box mounting bracket. We're going to install it with one of those bolts from the saddle bracket that we removed. So So we're gonna throw just a little dab of blue Loctite on it. And that's gonna go right down into that hole. Now we don't wanna tighten that all the way up. We just wanna make it so it's snug there. It can move around a little bit. All right, now it's time to prep our S&B filters air box and get it ready to install in the vehicle. So first up is this little bracket here, and it's gonna go right next to this large opening. We're gonna set it down and slide it all the way over until it's touching this little plastic edge here. Go ahead and tighten that down. Then for the bottom, we're gonna take this washer and this bolt here, and it's gonna go in. And that's also gonna get tightened. And this is what's gonna snap into that big round grommet we checked on earlier. Now, if we turn the air filter box over, this is where we're gonna throw our foam filter and then the retainer collar, and it just has 3 little Phillips screws. Then right here on these 2 holes, we've got 2 grommets to go in there. I'm gonna slip it in, and the easiest way to get them in is grab a screwdriver and just pop the edge in. Now look down inside this filter box, and we have these 2 grommets we just installed. Now we want to take these flanged aluminum bushings and just pop them in place. And then on this end, we have our large tube seal, and that's just gonna snap in. Now on this side, we have this big irregular shaped hole here and a plug that's gonna fit it. And this is the difference between open and closed when it comes to the airflow rating from S&B filters. So if we have this open, that's where they're getting that claimed 39% more airflow. If we were to install this plug, we're gonna limit the amount of airflow in here by about 5%. So it's gonna be just over 34% more airflow. Now, why would you wanna run this plug or not run this plug? Well, this is perfect for those who are gonna use their truck like a work truck and it's out in severe dusty environments. You're gonna wanna put this plug in. That's gonna help keep that filter a little cleaner. So now our air box is ready to go into the truck. Now for the air box to just drop in, just make sure all your wires are clear. And just kind of give it a little wiggle. So now once you get it down, you're gonna feel it hit that grommet. You just wanna pop it down, and then just make sure that it's anchored in there. Now that second bolt that we pulled out, that's gonna go right down here into this little pocket, and that's gonna screw right into that second bolt hole on the inner fender wall. All right, so then we have these 2 stainless screws that come with the kit. We put a little dab of blue Loctite on them, and they're gonna install right down to these aluminum flange bushings and tie into that bracket we had just installed. Easiest way to do this is to slide a screwdriver in there and align those holes up, and that's why we wanted that bracket just a little bit loose. So now we can take our bolts. Now once we got those 2 bolts tightened, now we want to go back in and tighten up the bolt holding that bracket in place. So we'll get some light down in there, and it's easiest to use a ratcheting wrench. You just slide down in. Now you do have this bit of wiring harness here that's pushed up out of the way, so we're gonna grab a couple zip ties and we're just gonna tie it down. And a set of flush cuts. Now if you don't have a set of these yet in your toolbox, the flush cuts are one of the most handiest tools for cutting zip tie tails off. They cut them nice and flush. They're also great for wiring. Now remember that missing screw up front? Well, I just went digging through our hardware box and I found a screw from something that does fit it. Now, to get your screw down in there, the easiest way to do that is going to be to take a little piece of painter's tape and just go right over your screw head, stuff our socket on it. That's going to hold it in place so we can then lower it down in. Let's just drop it right down into the hole. Then we reach in there with some needle nose pliers and just pull that piece of tape out. And that's what it should look like when it's done. Although if you still have the factory bolt, yours is gonna look a little different than ours. So now we're gonna move over to our AC intake port here. And this tube is right in the way of where our intake tube needs to go. It's aluminum and it's easy to bend out of the way. So we're just gonna grab it and just very carefully give it a little bit of a pull. And now it's out of our way. And now we're gonna take our factory air box and we wanna pull our MAF sensor out. So we're gonna grab a T20 bit. And let's just unscrew that guy. Now we wanna carefully pull that sensor out and make sure that you keep the factory gasket in place. Now S&B supplies this little adapter flange. You notice there's a cutout, and that's gonna fit right over the factory gasket. And then we're gonna take the S&B gasket, set that down, and it's gonna go right into the S&B intake tube. And then they supply 2 Phillips head screws. Now we're gonna take our air tube coupler, and we're gonna slip that right over the end of the air tube, and then turn it right up on end and push it down. So now that coupler is flush with the end of the air tube. And we can grab our hose clamps and we wanna slide them over, but we wanna make sure they're in the right position. So I'm gonna flip this around. Now this is a top view as it's in our engine compartment. So we wanna slide our hose clamp over, and you might find it easiest to reach if we put our worm drive right on top of the air tube. Slide it in. Whoa, hey, there goes that hose clamp. So we can just hold it down into position. Just give it a couple turns back into place. And then goes our outer hose clamp, and you might find it, maybe it's a little too tight. So of course we're just gonna loosen it up now. Now we don't wanna tighten these until it's on the vehicle. Now to install our intake tube, we're gonna put it into the air box first. Let's just give it a little wiggle. And we'll slide it in a bit. Now we have our coolant lines right here. We're gonna lift them up out of the way. Once we have it lined up, we can slide our coupler right over the top, and it's gonna bottom out right on this flange here. Just make sure you're flush all the way around. Now we don't want our coolant lines resting on these screw mechanisms, so we're just gonna slide them forward, slide them back, just get them out of the way. Now that's still hitting, so let's go ahead and go the other way. Oh, that one's right in between, perfect, and that one's on the back is cleared. Tighten this guy up. And once you got it tight, make sure you still have clearance here. And now we can tighten that back one. Now comes the S&B silicone inlet, and it's gonna slide into place, go up over the top. S&B includes these little plastic rivets, and you're gonna put one in the top, one in the bottom, and if you notice, they're gonna slide together just like that, and then you'll feel them click together. So if you have them lined up like that, they're just gonna hit, but if we turn them a little bit, they'll slide down. Then we have the factory plastic rivet, and that's gonna go right back into its position. Slide the body in first, push the plunger down, and it's locked in. All right, now comes our S&B air filter. And if you notice, this has got a kind of an oval shape to it. So we're gonna drop it in, and then we gotta tilt it up, and we're gonna just snap it in up over our intake tube. And then we can rotate it to make sure that we have good clearance all the way around that filter. And we just need to tighten our hose clamp. Now for our airbox cover, this already has a protective sheet peeled off both sides. You'll need to peel that off. And then we're gonna slip it into the grommet. Notice we've got this nice scalloped edge here, and that's gonna go right in there, and you'll find it's easiest to start on that side, or at least so S&B says. We're just gonna work our way all the way around this guy. Now this silicone gasket stretches really nicely, so don't worry too much about stretching it out. Okay, and ready to go in. Now, of course, I got fingerprints all over it, so let's just go ahead and get a little glass cleaner. Now to install it, we just want to set this gasket right down in on the air filter box. And we'll just give it another quick wipe. Now we just need to hook our battery terminals back up, and we can fire this thing up. Now, of course, while we're at it, we might as well clean those battery terminals. Now we're going to take our MAF sensor and snap that in place. Then you have the little lock on the back to lock in. Then this little Christmas tree is going to snap into the hole right here at the back of the airbox. And like all batteries, as we're connecting them, your positive is going to go on first. Make sure you get your cover all the way back down. And then our negative is going to go on. Okay. So there you go. The S&B Cold Air Intake Kit for the 2021 to 2023 Ford Super Duty with the 6.7 turbo diesel in it. And as you can see, it was a pretty easy install. It's something that you can do right in your own driveway or your garage. So if you're interested in adding more airflow to your engine, well, hit that link down in the description box below and get one on its way to you. And then I gotta thank you for watching today. We'll see you again soon.